I was born in Italy but left as a child. Now I'm back. But what happens when you're from here, yet you still feel like an outsider sometimes? In this video, I'll share my experience returning to Italy from the UK, what it's like as a repat, not just an expat, and how it compares to what most foreigners expect when moving here. Ciao friends and welcome back to my channel. I thought I'd do something a little different from my usual vlogs today, as I know a lot of you in the community also come from Italian backgrounds, and so I wanted to talk to you about the experience of being a repatriate or repat in Italy, as I think it provides quite a unique perspective on life here. If you're tuning into my channel for the first time, I was born in Campania in southern Italy, but grew up in the southwest of England. A couple of years ago, I decided to move to Abruzzo full time, and because I've moved to quite a remote area, the Italy I knew as a child still feels pretty much the same. The same neighbours that know all your business, the slow afternoons, and the festa that are still alive and kicking. So it wasn't so much that the environment had changed dramatically, but more that I had changed. And now I'm reflecting on who I am here. So these are some of the things I think you could relate to if you're thinking of moving to Italy as a repat. First of all, there's that feeling of being the in-betweener. In England, I was always the Italian friend. Italian was the first word people used to describe me, and it was the starting point for so many conversations. Here in Italy, I'm the one that grew up in England, even though I consider and have only ever considered myself Italian. And it doesn't really matter how well you speak the language, whether or not you were born here, studied here, how many local traditions you still carry on from your childhood or pick up while you're here. To some degree, I think you will always be considered an outsider. For a while, I found it really frustrating and would try and correct people, almost feeling like I had to justify my Italianness by throwing out all these facts. But over time, I've realised it's okay to be the in-betweener. It's absolutely fine that there's a part of me that likes to have a cup of Earl Grey in my Emma Bridgewater mug, but also another part of me that truly enjoys living my life in a way that corresponds with traditional Italian values. Instead of viewing this in-between stage as a lack of identity, I now view it as something really positive, and I think that being the in-betweener can be the identity itself. It's embracing a crossing of two cultures and taking the best from both worlds. I'll be honest, in a small village like this, you have very little anonymity. People notice what time you open the shutters in the morning, how you say buongiorno, whether you stop to chat or whether you just keep moving. It's easy to feel like you're being observed. But behind that observation is also a great deal of care, because those people that are watching what time you get up in the morning are the same people who will notice when you're not feeling yourself. They'll leave a bag of vegetables at your door and they'll ask how you are and actually want to hear the answer. When you stop viewing it as a judgment and instead view it as the start of a relationship, I think it gives you the opportunity to decide how you want to show up. That you want to be the first person to say hello, to stop and help somebody with their shopping, and to get really involved in all of the community. Belonging here isn't something that's handed to you on a plate. It's practiced, just like learning a new language. In England, being Italian was a full-time identity. It was definitely a reference point. People would ask how you cook, what you wear, the things that you celebrate. You guard certain traditions because they remind you of who you are. You tell stories about your summers in Italy, your nonna, the smell of sauce on a Sunday in the kitchen, and people love it. It's almost like a free pass because there's something about being Italian abroad that seems to make you instantly likable because everybody loves Italy. They meet you where your Italy lives, often at the point at which you left the country. And there's a strange comfort in that. You end up feeling intensely, performatively Italian because your Italy is concentrated and preserved, much like the passata that I was making last week. But then you come back to Italy and you realise that things move on, even in these small villages. Yes, maybe not in a flashy, obvious way, but in a lived-in way. Things have slowly modernised. Back in England, my Italianness was a story with clean edges, but here it's just the norm. Here, nobody needs to be told how to make a mocha pot or why Sunday lunch stretches late into the afternoon. So inevitably, the edges soften. You're not the Italian, you're just you, an Italian living amongst other Italians. And it can be beautiful and exposing at the same time. Another thing that can make you feel a little bit of an outsider is just missing those tiny cultural references that other people your age know. Whether it's why somebody's famous, or a popular song from the Sanremo Music Festival, or just a turn of phrase, it definitely shows that you've spent long chunks of time outside of Italy. I've missed so many of those important cultural moments whilst trying to keep my version of Italy alive abroad. It can show up in very small ways. The other evening I was out at dinner and somebody quoted a line from a famous sketch show from years ago and everyone was roaring with laughter, whilst I was sat there smiling, just thinking to myself, I must remember to ask about that later or Google it. Or it might be that everyone's talking about a show that they all watched during lockdown, or just what their experience was during lockdown, which was a period I was obviously still living in England. And it can be quite disorientating because it's sort of like missing an entire season of a show and trying to pretend that you're keeping up when really you aren't at all. But don't forget, it's not a flaw, it's just a part of life, and people usually are very happy to fill you in on all the gaps that you've missed. The friendship conundrum. I think I've spoken about this on a few occasions before, but I really do think that friendship here builds slowly. And I don't think that that slowness should be seen as distance. I actually think it's because they're built with more depth. But obviously it can be quite hard when you already know the language and you probably think you have an advantage there in making friends, when actually moving to a close-knit community, it's hard. People like Mr. V has known everybody since his school days and they're all still here now. So it's very hard to compete with that level of history. And I don't think it's likely that you'll slot in straight away, even though you speak the language and probably have a really good idea of the Italian cultural context from your background. When I lived in England, I met most of my friends through school, university or work, whereas here I work from home for a British company. So there really isn't the opportunity to do that. And you really do have to just make that extra effort to keep showing up and keep showing your face, and eventually I'm sure it will happen for you. Now, the other side to this is that people will inherently expect you to want to become friends with expats or other repats. I'm not saying I don't have expat friends. I've met some wonderful British people since I've been here and we see each other lots, but my intention with moving here was to fully integrate into the Italian lifestyle, and so I do try and avoid anything which is specifically aimed at expats only. I think belonging is evidenced in very ordinary day-to-day things. So the first time somebody asks for my help, or asks me for directions, or divulges a little part of themselves that they haven't shared with me before. Those are the things that really count and make me feel like I'm at home here. If you're a repat or you're thinking of moving back to Italy, here's the reassurance I can offer you from my little Abruzzese reality. Feeling fully Italian and still experiencing gaps does not make you less Italian. It simply means that you loved something for so long and so consistently that it froze as you held on tight, and coming back to Italy will defrost it. That's all. It will be messy and alive again, and you'll get to experience those chapters that you didn't witness in real time whilst you were away. People often ask me if I miss England, and the answer is honestly no, not in the way that people would expect. I'm truly grateful for everything it's given me, a great education, a different perspective, and friends that I love. But here in the mountains, this is where I feel most like me. I didn't come back to compare the two cultures. I just came back to continue my journey in the place I feel is right for me. So now when people ask me the question, but where are you really from? I say I'm from here. And if they want a longer answer, I tell them a story that includes England not as a definition, but as a classroom on my way back here. I'm letting the version that I carried with me abroad merge with the version that kept moving here, and I'll keep doing that until I have only one version, and that's mine. If any of this resonates with you, or if you've made a similar journey, then please do let me know in the comments. What cultural references did you realise you'd missed, and how did you catch up? And if you're preparing to come back to Italy, what is one of the traditions that you will refuse to leave in the jar? Grazie mille for being here and listening to my story. I hope you enjoyed hearing about the nuances of being a repat, and I will catch you again very soon with the highlights of my recent holiday. Ciao for now.